The film opens with Nick stroking his wife Amy's hair, saying in voiceover that he would like to crack her lovely skull and pick her brain apart to see what kind of secrets might spill out. On the morning of July 5th, Nick goes to a bar he co-owns with his sister Margot. She pours them both a glass of bourbon. It's the day of Nick and Amy's 5th wedding anniversary. Yet when Amy's name comes up, Nick makes it clear that the last place he wants to be is at home. But Nick and Amy did not always live like this. Years earlier, they met at a crowded party in New York. Both were writers, both clever, and both immediately drawn to one another. Nick wrote for a men's magazine, while Amy wrote personality quizzes for another publication. Amy joked that Nick's chin made him look untrustworthy, and he responded by placing two fingers on it, pretending to make himself more reliable. They walked together through the city and past a bakery unloading sugar, which drifted through the air as they moved through it. Nick wiped sugar from Amy's lips and kissed her. Back in the present, Nick leaves the bar and drives home. As soon as he pulls up, something feels off. His cat is sitting outside on the front lawn. Nick picks it up and notices that the front door is open. Inside, he calls out for Amy, but there is no answer. He moves into the living room, where he finds a table flipped over and the glass surface shattered across the floor. Nick screams Amy's name, loud enough to startle a neighbor. He calls the police. A detective and an officer arrive and begin inspecting the house. Upstairs, the bedroom is neat and undisturbed. Amy's dress is laid out carefully, the iron still warm, as if she had been getting ready to go somewhere and vanished in the middle of her routine. In the kitchen, the detective notices a smear of blood above the counter. In Amy's office, they find a wall covered in photos of Amazing Amy, the fictional character from the children's book series written by her parents. The detective comments that she loved the books growing up and is surprised to learn that Nick is married to the real Amazing Amy. The story shifts back in time to February 24th, 2007, when Nick and Amy attend a party hosted by her parents. Amy's father encourages her to sit with bloggers and reporters to answer questions, many of which are superficial and invasive, including why she was not married yet. Nick interrupts the conversation, pretending to be a reporter himself. He proposes to Amy by placing a ring inside a booklet. Back in the present, Nick is taken to the police station for questioning about Amy's disappearance. The detective and the officer find his demeanor troubling. He appears oddly detached, answering questions in a flat, passive manner. He struggles to explain how Amy spent her days and cannot recall basic details about her, including her blood type. When asked about Amy's friends, Nick admits that she doesn't have any in town. Most concerning of all, he still has not contacted Amy's parents to inform them that their daughter is missing. The story shifts back this time to July 5th, 2009. Nick and Amy have been married for 2 years and are still very much in love. They discover they have bought each other the exact same expensive sheet set. The purchase came from an earlier conversation where Amy complained about how miserable it was to sleep on terrible sheets. In the present, Nick stays at his twin sister Margot's house while the police continue processing his home. A pregnant neighbor stops by, introducing herself as Amy's best friend and asking questions about her whereabouts. During a search of the bedroom, an officer finds an envelope tucked inside a clothing drawer. It is labeled Clue 1. After Nick finally calls them, Amy's parents fly in from New York as a press conference is held to raise awareness about Amy's disappearance. Nick attempts to ask others for help, but his emotional detachment continues to work against him. Standing beside Amy's missing poster, he smiles for the cameras, an image that quickly spreads and makes him look insensitive and unbothered. Later, Amy's parents meet with the detective at the station to discuss potential suspects. Amy's father brings up Desi, an ex-boyfriend who attempted to take his own life after Amy broke up with him. He also mentions another boyfriend who allegedly sexually assaulted Amy, a case in which she pressed charges. When the detective questions Nick about the envelope marked Clue 1, he explains that Amy always created elaborate anniversary treasure hunts. They were meant to test how well Nick knew her, while also reminding him of the ways he had disappointed her over the years. Believing they may help reconstruct Amy's final movements, the police decide to follow them. The first clue leads Nick and the detective to his office, where a pair of red underwear is discovered. The second clue references a brown house, but Nick goes to his father's old home, which is painted blue. There, he finds the third clue, though he is unable to decipher what it means. Another flashback takes us to their third year of marriage, when a recession hits both Nick and Amy hard. They each lose their jobs, leaving them financially strained and emotionally adrift. As the months pass, Nick begins to disengage from the marriage. He spends money on electronics, including video games and a new laptop. Amy's sense of isolation worsens when Nick's mother is diagnosed with breast cancer. The couple relocates to Nick's hometown in Missouri so he can help care for his family. For Amy, the move represents a complete loss of identity. She begins to feel disposable, as though Nick no longer needs her. Arguments become more frequent and explosive. One confrontation over whether to have children escalates into physical violence. Amy hits Nick in the chest, and Nick responds by grabbing her and throwing her against the staircase. Back to the present. Nick receives a text message saying someone is outside Margot's house. He opens the back door to find Andy, a young woman he's been having an affair with. She slips inside, and they resume their relationship while Margot sleeps. Nick makes sure Andy has not told anyone about the affair or about his desire to divorce Amy. Early the next morning, Nick lets Andy leave, assuming Margot is still asleep. Instead, Margot is waiting in the kitchen. She angrily confronts her brother, knowing exactly how disastrous this revelation would be if the police or the media found out. As news of Nick's behavior continues to surface, television hosts and commentators begin portraying him as an unempathetic sociopath, feeding the growing public narrative against him. The police investigation continues to escalate as more details emerge. A local gun dealer reports that Amy attempted to purchase a firearm on Valentine's Day, claiming that she feared her husband. That night, a public vigil is held for Amy. Nick stands alongside her parents, attempting to project empathy and hope. His efforts fall flat. Then the pregnant neighbor who claimed to be Amy's best friend reveals to everyone that Amy was 6 weeks pregnant. The announcement sends shockwaves through the crowd. Reporters immediately surround Nick, chasing him as police escort him to their vehicle. Later, the detective meets Nick back at his home and informs him that someone wiped up a significant amount of blood from the kitchen floor. Nick expresses doubt that Amy was close with the neighbor who claimed to be her friend, until the detective presents photographs of Amy with the woman and her children. She also hands Nick a list of recent credit card transactions made in Amy's name, purchases Nick insists he never made. The detective presses him further, pointing out that he increased Amy's life insurance policy earlier that year. Nick claims it was Amy's idea and that she asked him to fill in the paperwork. The investigation takes another sharp turn when the detective receives a call confirming that Amy's lab results are back. The results show that Amy was indeed pregnant. Faced with mounting evidence, Nick requests a lawyer. Meanwhile, police return to Nick's father's old house to continue their search. In the basement, inside the furnace, they discover what appears to be Amy's diary. The edges are scorched, as if someone attempted to destroy it but failed. At the same time, Nick finally deciphers the third clue from the anniversary hunt. It leads him to the woodshed behind Margot's house. Inside, he finds a massive stash of electronics, matching the credit card purchases attributed to Amy. At the center of the pile is a box containing Punch and Judy dolls. The Judy doll is missing its mallet. Putting the pieces together, Nick and Margot realize that Amy has carefully staged everything and framed Nick for her disappearance. The story rewinds to the morning of July 5th, the day Amy disappeared. The truth is finally revealed. Amy is alive, and she calmly narrates how everything was staged. As she drives away from Missouri, Amy explains that she had been preparing for this moment long before Nick ever realized anything was wrong. For months, Amy had been writing false information into her diary, deliberately constructing a narrative that painted Nick as abusive and volatile. She documented fabricated fears that he might kill her, knowing the diary would eventually be discovered. She even planned to fake a pregnancy by befriending her pregnant neighbor. Amy drained her toilet and encouraged the neighbor to drink enough fluids to use the bathroom. She then stole the woman's urine and left it behind for the police to find as evidence. The blood in the kitchen and the apparent struggle in the living room were both staged. The extravagant credit card purchases were intentional, designed to make Nick appear financially reckless and abusive. Even the anniversary treasure hunt was weaponized, guiding police step by step through evidence of motive, infidelity, and violence. On the morning of their 5th anniversary, Amy allowed Nick to go about his day as usual while she meticulously prepared the crime scene. Once finished, she disappeared. To avoid being recognized, Amy cut her hair, dyed it, and deliberately made herself look unkempt and disheveled. She even struck herself in the face with a hammer to sell the appearance of abuse. July 6th marks Amy's first full day in hiding. She rents a bungalow at a resort-like area and spends time by the swimming pool, where a neighboring woman repeatedly attempts to befriend her. Amy clearly wants to be left alone, but understands she cannot draw attention to herself. The following day, Amy visits a local library, where she checks the news and watches footage of Nick's public statements. She tracks the investigation closely, studying how the story is unfolding. By the third day, the chatty neighbor sits beside Amy at the pool and begins asking personal questions. The woman has a busted lip, and she notices Amy hiding a black eye behind oversized sunglasses. The two bond over shared resentment toward men. Nick travels to New York to meet Tanner Bolt, a high-profile attorney who has been following Nick's case closely through the media. Nick explains what has been happening, and Tanner finds the whole situation almost impressive. He recognizes the precision of Amy's plan and agrees to represent Nick. Tanner explains that Amy has constructed a flawless narrative, and the only way to fight it is not through facts alone, but by reshaping public perception. They need to prepare a defense that reframes Amy not as a helpless victim, but as someone capable of manipulation. Nick tells Tanner about two men from Amy's past who might support that argument. A man in New York whom Amy accused years earlier, and a former classmate who became obsessed with her. Tanner gives Nick the contact information for the New York man, so he can go talk to him. Nick meets Tommy in a bar. Tommy explains that he met Amy at a party and initially believed she was perfect. Over time, however, her attention became overwhelming. She tried to fix him, change his wardrobe, and molded him into someone else. Eventually, he pulled away. One night, Amy came to his apartment with a bottle of bourbon, and they had a physically intense but consensual encounter. Later, Amy reframed the encounter as assault. Tommy is now a registered offender, unable to find work or maintain relationships for the past 10 years. His life has been permanently destroyed. Meanwhile, Amy spends the evening watching television with her neighbor. News coverage discusses Amy's pregnancy, and her supposed best friend is interviewed, praising Amy's intelligence and character. The neighbor reacts with contempt, dismissing Amy as a rich, stuck-up woman who married an awful man and got what was coming to her. Amy listens closely, anger simmering beneath her calm exterior. When the neighbor is not looking, Amy spits into her drink. After returning to her bungalow, Amy calls the police to report suspicious activity behind Margot's woodshed. Meanwhile, Nick visits Desi after finding his address through a letter Desi wrote to Amy. Nick asks him about their breakup, explaining what Amy told him about their relationship. Desi listens briefly, then shuts the door and retreats inside without answering. Then Tanner travels to Missouri to work directly with Nick and Margot on repairing Nick's public image. Nick explains what he now believes Amy has been doing, laying out details. He tells Tanner that Amy likes to play God and teach people lessons. After discovering his affair with Andy, she decided to punish him. The anniversary treasure hunt was not romantic at all, but a guided tour through his infidelity. Each location was tied to a place where Nick had been seeing Andy. Nick explains that the reason he immediately understood the Brown House clue was because he and Amy used to pretend that his father was a spy named Mr. Brown. Nick also admits the affair to Tanner, who advises him to tell the police. Tanner explains that Andy will eventually talk regardless. He also warns that the police may go after Margot next, assuming she helped cover for Nick. Tanner's goal is not just to defend Nick, but to find Amy herself. When he asks Nick where Amy would go, Nick admits he has no idea. Meanwhile, Amy plays mini-golf with her neighbor and the neighbor's boyfriend. At one point, Amy jumps and drops her fanny pack, spilling cash onto the ground. The couple notices the money. The following day, they force their way into Amy's room and rob her. Left completely penniless, Amy is forced to call someone for help from payphone. Tanner decides that Nick needs to do a controlled interview to shift public perception. He arranges for Nick to speak with a reporter who openly dislikes him. Tanner coaches him extensively, explaining that the only way to regain public favor is to admit his failures openly. Nick must acknowledge the affair and his dishonesty, even if it makes him look worse in the short term, because it will make him appear human. At the same time, Amy is located at a casino after making contact with Desi. She tells Desi that she lost the baby and had nowhere else to go. He offers to take care of her and to bring her to his secluded lake house. As Nick prepares to meet with the reporter, a major development breaks. Andy holds a press conference and publicly confesses to her affair with Nick, doing so directly in front of Amy's parents. The revelation explodes across the media. Desi and Amy see the news at the casino at the same time the reporter receives word of it before her interview with Nick. Amy's parents tell reporters that their support for Nick ends immediately and that they now believe he is involved in their daughter's disappearance. Desi brings Amy to his lake house and gives her a tour of the property. He shows her the security cameras installed around the house. The next night, Nick appears on Sharon Schieber's show. Margot watches from home while Amy watches from the lake house. Nick presents himself as remorseful and broken. He admits to the affair and acknowledges that he failed as a husband, but he firmly insists that he did not kill his wife. He says that even though he did not murder Amy, he knows he is not a good man. He explains that he pretended to be someone better in order to win her love and then failed to live up to that version of himself. Despite everything, Nick states that he believes Amy is still alive. Sharon gives Nick the opportunity to speak directly into the camera. He uses the moment carefully, addressing Amy as if she is watching. He says he loves her and promises to become the man she married. Amy watches the interview with visible satisfaction, clearly pleased by his performance. Desi, however, turns off the television. He tells Amy that he plans to move in with her the next day and that they will be together from now on. Margot checks online reactions and sees that public opinion is already shifting in Nick's favor. However, the momentum is cut short when the detective and several officers arrive at her house with a search warrant. Acting on an anonymous tip about suspicious activity near the woodshed, they search the property and uncover the electronics purchased with Amy's credit card. Margot is arrested and taken into custody. Nick and Tanner rush to the police station to get Margot released. Inside, the detective presents Nick with Amy's diary and asks if he has ever seen it before. Nick insists he has not. The detective reads aloud entries describing Amy's fear, culminating in a final line stating that this man may kill her. Another officer enters with the missing mallet from the Punch and Judy dolls. With the evidence now complete, the detective has enough to formally arrest Nick. Nick and Margot are later released on bond. As they leave the station, the media crowds in around them, convinced that Nick is a calculating monster. While Desi is away at work, Amy begins preparing the final phase of her plan. She soaks her nightgown in grape juice and crawls deliberately into the camera's view, staging the appearance of sexual assault. She fakes crying and screaming, ensuring that the footage captures every detail. Then she retrieves a wine bottle and inserts it into herself, ensuring her injuries will appear consistent with assault. When Desi arrives, Amy seduces him. Once they are in the bedroom and Desi is fully distracted, Amy reaches for a box cutter and slashes his throat. Blood covers her as Desi collapses. The next morning, Nick looks out the window of his home and notices an unusual stillness outside. A car is pulled into the driveway. Amy steps out, drenched in blood. Neighbors and reporters immediately swarm as she walks toward the house. Nick meets her outside as she collapses into his arms. At the hospital, Amy tells her story. She claims that Desi kidnapped and assaulted her, holding her captive until she managed to escape. She describes the morning of her disappearance, saying Desi appeared at the door, forced his way inside, and attacked her in the kitchen. As she speaks, the detective interrupts to point out inconsistencies. Amy ignores her questions and continues recounting her assault. The FBI take control of the case and accept Amy's story without hesitation. The detective recognizes that Amy is lying, but she no longer has authority. The narrative has been sealed. Reporters follow Nick and Amy home, celebrating her return. Once inside the house, Amy tells Nick that his performance on television was perfect and that he gave her exactly what she wanted. Amy is visibly pleased, treating the ordeal as a successful collaboration. Nick demands to know what really happened while she was gone. Amy invites Nick to join her in the shower, washing Desi's blood off her body while also making sure he is not wearing a wire. She makes it clear that she framed Desi and murdered him in order to make her return appear heroic and beyond suspicion. Nick is horrified by what she has done. Amy dismisses his reaction, reminding him that he went on national television and begged her to save his life. She tells him she wants the version of Nick she saw on television. Nick tells her he is leaving her. Amy explains why he cannot. The public will destroy him if he tries to leave now. After everything she has been through, Nick abandoning her would make him irredeemable. She tells him to think carefully about his decision. Nick later meets with Tanner, Margot, and the detective. She now believes Nick's version of events, but without evidence, there is nothing she can do. The case is under federal jurisdiction, and all official channels are closed. Tanner tells Nick that he and Amy are the most toxic couple he has ever seen and advises him not to piss her off. 7 weeks pass after Amy's return. Nick stands alone in the bathroom, rehearsing what he plans to say to finally expose her. Before he can finish, Amy calls for him to come downstairs. She reminds him they need to rehearse for an upcoming interview. Nick tells her not to worry, assuring her that he knows exactly what to say. They are scheduled to appear on Ellen Abbott's show. Ellen arrives at their home, and Nick reminds her of all the messed up things she told about him on the news. Then he goes upstairs to find Amy. Amy presents Nick with a gift. Inside is a positive pregnancy test. Nick is stunned and immediately demands a paternity test. Amy dismisses the request, commenting that she loves tests. Nick tells her he is leaving her, no matter how much she can make the public hate him. Amy explains that she does not need to make his own child hate him. He will do that on his own. Nick slams Amy's head against the wall and calls her C-U-N-T. Amy tells him she is the same person he fell in love with. She reminds him that she has killed for him and that she does not quit. She tells him that if he thinks he will be happy with some ordinary Midwestern woman, he is fooling himself. Reluctantly, Nick agrees to stay. He joins Amy hand in hand for the interview. When they break the news of the pregnancy to Ellen, she is ecstatic and embraces Amy. Later, Margot learns about the pregnancy. She breaks down, crying for her brother, understanding that he is now permanently bound to Amy. The film ends where it began. Nick strokes Amy's hair once again, his expression unreadable. As he holds her, he wonders to himself what she is thinking, fully aware that he may never truly know. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time.